we know Opal. We all know Opal. So she will speak for herself here. We don't need to introduce her. But I just want to open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Opal and her courage in this fight against human trafficking and her boundless energy. And Lord, we just pray your blessing on her. Please bless our time together tonight and speak to each one of us about how you want us to move forward with what we learned tonight. And we just pray that Satan will be bound in this and human trafficking will end. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, buckle up. Here we go. I've been working on this all day. You folks are important to me. And the other thing that is important to me is that I'm seeing a lot of changes coming on in the world of human trafficking and combating it. And not just human trafficking, but social media exploitation, child pornography, and even CSAM. So we're going to cover a lot of territory tonight. For those of you that haven't met me, my name is Opal Singleton Hendershot, now that I'm married. Anyway, I have been doing this 13 years, and I'm an instructor at 3 classes of USC and the LA Fire Training Academy and the California Code Enforcement Association. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is going to be based on real cases. Now, I can't give you the slides, but you're welcome to take photos of any of this that you want, and we will record it, and I'll send it over to Kathy so she can distribute it if you want to. But because of the Department of Justice, I can't just send out my slides. So feel free to take all the photos you want. I will overwhelm you with information. I've spent the whole day figuring out what not to say, but that's okay. Let it run off of you. And then it's the kind of thing where after you leave tonight, you should go be good to yourself because you're going to hear a lot of hard stuff. But it's the kind of thing where it'll come back to you and you'll go, oh, that's what she was talking about. So my organization is Million Kids. I'd invite you to follow us on Facebook. I am not a fan of Facebook for what it's worth. I was one of the people last October taken off. And we don't know why, but we were, and we're back on. We've got about 9,000 followers, but we lost all of our thousands of followers. But it's IE Million Kids, and I'd invite you to please follow us on that. Some other resources before we get deep into it. I do have a radio show, if you can reach it out here in the Inland Empire on AM 590, The Answer. It may be something you guys want to consider in Orange County. I use this for 2 reasons. One, to talk about sex buying, because without sex buying, there's a limited amount of sex selling. It won't solve all the problems. But the other one is because I believe law enforcement gets a bad rap. And I want our community to know what is being done about it. And also I want to educate parents about apps and what to look for. For 10 years now, I have been the training and outreach coordinator for the Riverside County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force. I am their original member. That just makes me older than everybody else. That's no big deal, but it's great to be part of a task force. When everybody else was cutting back law enforcement, my sheriff doubled the size of our task force. We now have 2 full-time task forces in Riverside County. One in the main of Riverside and the other is out in Coachella. And they are local people. And I'll talk about that. By the way, one of the things I will talk about is ethnicity. Because there is an ethnicity factor in human trafficking. And from that, I mean that you have to understand the culture of the victim that you're working with and what is involved in their willingness to come forward and how to communicate and understand what their needs and fears are. I do report to the Department of Justice. They need this little disclaimer to let you know they're not responsible for my attitude. So there you go. Okay, so one of the things that I highly recommend is I started early this year doing insider alerts. You can sign up for them either at Million Kids or insideralerts.org. Both of them are .org. And these are about 5 to 10 minute messages that come out about 3 times a week. I'm going to show you one. I do case analysis. I do breaking news. We do legislative issues, we do new technology and like that. And that is the best way to stay current. And there is no charge for those. So here's a breaking news that I just did about a week and a half ago that I wanted to bring to your attention. a headline on May 14th, 76,000 California inmates eligible for early release. So I'm not surprised by that. I've been fighting this since ever since 2016 when Proposition 57 passed. So I'm going to give you some background in it. This notice came out by the California Office of Administrative Law late on a Friday night based on emergency regulations, which declared a state of emergency in the state of California, meaning that you don't get a chance to vote on it, saying that many inmates will be eligible for early release. Some of them, by the way, are serving life sentences. So this started with Proposition 57. And Proposition 57 was one of those feel-good kinds of proposals that people voted for, thinking we have way too many prisons. We don't want to vote have any more. Let's take those people who are rehabilitated and we'll let them out. So it was about nonviolent crimes, which felt good. Okay. The problem is the writers of that, and I'm not going to get political on you, but it was the top law people in the state of California wrote Proposition 57. And what they knew was that it did not exclude sex offenders. So for a couple of years, Governor Brown said, well, it won't, trust me, it won't. Well, what happened is a prisoner in the state of California prison filed a lawsuit against the state of California saying that he was being discriminated against because he could not get out early. He's a sex offender. So this is all based on the fact that the law was written to include that it would exclude nonviolent crimes, but there were only 13 violent crimes in the state of California. And sex with a child is not considered a violent crime. By the way, that's why I was taken off Facebook, is because I believe that sex with a child should be a violent crime. And apparently Chan Zuckerberg doesn't agree with me and they own the place, so I lost. But that doesn't matter. The point of it is that sex offenders can get out early because it's not considered violent. So what happened is when that sex offender filed a lawsuit against the state of California, it made its way through the appeals court. We got new governors, new legislative bodies, and it went all the way to the top of the Supreme Court. And in December, the Supreme Court justice ruled that it is, in fact, that sex offenders should be allowed out early. In fact, she even chastised the California public voter, saying that if the voter had wanted it to include sex offenders, they would have said so. So it's gone to the Supreme Court, so now sex offenders can get out early. But now with this emergency release, what may happen, and I'm not going to say this will happen, I'm not an extremist in any way, but up to 76,000 people are eligible for early release. Along with that wording, which I did not even realize, is that it also eliminated the enhanced sentencing. So if you had a 30-year sentence and maybe 10 of it was for a sex offense and the rest was enhanced, if you've done 7 of your 10, you can go ahead and get out early. And I did not realize that it included that. So all of this is up for grabs for now, but I want you to be aware of it because I think this is worth fighting for. And so does my DA, which is Mike Hestron. And I'm very, very proud of him he was one of 41 district attorneys that put his name on a letter to go against this and also to go against the situation in Los Angeles where the DA Gascon is trying to do away with any future enhanced sentencing. So I looked at it, and your DA is one of those people that signed that letter. So one of the things you can do is cheer him on. I wrote to Mike. I'm a good friend with Mike. Obviously, I've been doing this for years, but I wrote to Mike to say how proud I was of him. And if there's any way I can support him, when this went through before, I raised $10,000 and 10,000 signatures to go to Governor Brown. And so I want Mike to know I've got his back and he's doing the right thing. And I think that's one of the things that you all can do. Now, this is kind of a hard slide. I thought about taking it out, but I want to just lay the groundwork for you. This is not your normal human trafficking discussion where we talk about the 14-year-old girl who falls in love. That is part of the equation. It absolutely is. But what has happened in human trafficking in the last year to 2 years is just huge. And I want you to see that we're having kind of a convergence of situations that really will make the future challenging. One of the reasons I get so excited about talking to you all is I'm getting old, okay? But I need you all to understand and raise that foundation to understand the big picture and what role you can play in it. So that's the reason why you're going to see a wide swath that I'm carrying here so that you can look at each of these issues. We are seeing cartel and organized criminal enterprise. They have sophisticated technology. No, very few people are funding law enforcement. When I hear defunding police, I'm about to go nuts because I'm saying we ought to be upping the funding like crazy to get good technology to prepare for the crimes of the future. It is our kids' future at stake here. They are empowered by underground financing resulting from human smuggling. Just last month, the cartels at the border brought in more than $70 million that we could calculate based on the people that were caught just in coyote fees. That's 70 million a month times 12. It gets you an idea that the cartel is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the way, it isn't only just the Mexican cartel. One of the things that we're seeing is Chinese cartels are working with Mexican cartels. It's all about money laundering. We're seeing human trafficking rings that are funding illegal pot grows that are ran by people from Asia who speak Spanish, and the money is being laundered back through the border. So gangs like MS-13 are the coyotes, so is Sinaloa, and they use encrypted messaging and sophisticated technology. We're going to talk about what is going to happen when the entire world is connected by internet. But just to get you a start of the process, the thinking process, imagine you're living in Nepal and somebody comes to you because you now have a little phone and says you can go to America and be a welder for $60,000 a year. Just give me your life savings and sign over your house. And so how do we prepare for that? I was thinking about that for you guys, about getting education programs for your missionaries overseas that are out there talking to those people anyway, to begin to prepare them so they're not sitting ducks as they grow into the World Wide Web. On top of it, our kids will have millions of followers. We're going to talk deeply about that. We have a convergence of what I call the vortex. Encryption, they're arguing on that on Capitol Hill. By the end of the year, I believe every app will have a money processing feature to it, probably a cryptocurrency. China already has theirs. And if they tie it to TikTok, Facebook tried to get one through, they were shut down by the government. And now they're back. They tried with Libra, now they're back with Diem. But just imagine what happens when your children have money transferred to all of their transaction. We have mass audience live streaming. Lots and lots of kids will have more than 1 million followers. And all of this is set up for money laundering and moving masses amounts of money. Over the last year, the social distancing, online learning, I cannot tell you how big this is. It accelerated the number of kids available and vulnerable online, and younger and younger. And, let's face it, we are putting prepubescent kids online without ever having a sex talk. And they have no ability to understand what a pedophile is or where their naked photo goes when they hit send. So this has really become a deal. I was talking to my task force this afternoon, and last half of their numbers, they had 11 cases of kids being trafficked, not sextorted, but put into prostitution under the age of 13. 11 cases right here in Riverside because of this situation. And now what you're seeing is many of your law enforcement agencies have suffered budget cuts, and very few of them are able to invest in future technology to combat these big crimes. So we're going to cover some foreign trafficking, some domestic trafficking, some sextortion, social media exploitation. I first want to share with you about foreign trafficking. I am absolutely passionate. I had to pick one or two important cases because there are so many. But one of the things that happened over the last couple of years is The previous administration put out millions of dollars for task forces. And that's not an endorsement, or I'm not for or against. I'm just going to tell you that more task forces got funded over the last 4 years than we've ever seen before. And I believe this is the result of that. Because this kind of trafficking, what was happening before is we'd go out and we'd find somebody being exploited in a massage parlor, and the next thing you know, we would try to rescue her and arrest a couple of them, and a week later that massage parlor was reopened under another name. It's called Whack-A-Mole. And so, but we'd be happy with one massage parlor. When the funding came for what they called the multidisciplinary teams, where we could get into the large scale rings, it is phenomenal what is going on in our own communities. So they're large scale, they're multinational, multi-state, maybe led by females, and about money laundering. I point this out about females because I am a post-certified law enforcement trainer. I travel all across the United States to do law enforcement training. And I want law enforcement to understand the female is most likely the victim. But when you get to these foreign national rings, you have to be careful of that line of thinking, because many of them are led by women. These cases require huge investments. They're just massive. I saw one that took over 500,000 hours of investigation. You're not going to get that out of your local police department when they're already short of their budget. Thousands of hours. So here's one that happened last month. It is involving unaccompanied minors. It is the Paredes family sex trafficking ring. It started up in Ventura. This is ran by the grandmother. This is the matriarch of the family. She is down in Mexico, and she is using her grandmotherly connections to lure 15-year-old girls, talk mom into, you can let her come with me. I'll put her in our family business up in California. And then they're paying coyotes. This is a cartel organization. They're paying coyotes. They bring them in, and these are unaccompanied minors that are now put into sex trafficking. The girl on the top left, I'm dyslexic, sorry. The girl on the top left is her daughter. The girl on the top, the guy on the top right is her son. The girl on the lower right is the granddaughter who is laundering the money, and the girl on the lower left is the girlfriend, the guy's girlfriend who's doing the bookkeeping. So they bring in, this is family operated, but it's cartel related. You can tell that by various things. So this operation started up in Ventura. They had a massage parlor and a skincare business. They got a lead about maybe sex or labor trafficking taking place. And to their credit, they didn't use the old system of just go in, rescue them, take it down, and move on. We have learned to bring in the franchise tax board and start to follow the trail of money, because these are multi-million-dollar rings. When they did, they found that the owners and the operators are out here in Riverside and San Bernardino. And so the women are brought in and they owe money to coyotes. And that's very important to understand. Once they got here, they were advertised out on sex sites, just like this one right here. I tried to pick some that didn't have too bad a language on it. Sorry about that, but this is a typical sex site. So they are moved from place to place to place. Now that is typical the way they do it. They never usually leave a girl there more than 8 to 10 days. Number one, they don't want a girlfriend experience where the same guy and the same girl are getting together. She'll ask for help. Number two is, what if she hooks up with law enforcement? If he comes back, she'll be gone. So they will rotate these. This is one of the reasons why it's so hard to connect these massage parlors to large scale rings when you see something like that. Now, in this case, they had 6 different businesses where they were operating the sex selling, and the fashion spot was run by the granddaughter doing the money laundering. One of the things I noticed when I researched this is that none of these people had websites except Fashion Spot. Where the sex selling was going on, there was not a website. And I thought that might give you a hint if you start looking at a massage parlor place and you wonder if it's a legitimate business. Now, having said that, a lot of those sites will advertise out on rub maps, which you don't want to go on to, but I know about. Rub maps is the investigative area. It's where they advertise sex through massage parlors and like that. And our guys go on it, but in a controlled setting. So all the money was being laundered through this place right out here in Colton. And so all the businesses brought in their money. So the bank account, the bank apparently didn't realize with all this money going through there that it isn't just from this one particular business who obviously can't generate that kind of capital. This is a multi-million-dollar deal. Now, here's all the people that are involved, and the three people in the middle were not family members. And I'm going to just tell you that I believe they're cartel, and that they're doing what they call the hawala method of money laundering. They're hauling the money back across the border and hiding it and getting it back into Mexico. The mother, they said, was arrested. I can't find proof of that. However, they organized this together. You see, what is important in understanding this is all of this research takes place online, getting the background and then getting everybody coordinated so that they don't just go in and take down one place and that gives everybody else a chance to run. They coordinated these activities, were able to get a large sum of money out of this. They also were able to rescue several of the women. Now, these kinds of victims are completely different than where you get the young girl who falls in love with the guy. These victims, they have a lot at stake. One of the things that people don't realize in foreign national, and this is true of many of your Asian countries, and it's also true of many of your Hispanic countries, what will happen is they will negotiate with a coyote or an agent or a representative, and they will end up putting a debt on their property. And so when the person gets up here, one of the reasons they won't tell, not for fear that they're going to get hurt, but that their family back home is going to lose everything. And so they absolutely won't talk because of that factor. And this is the reason why out in Coachella, we have developed a task force that is all Spanish speaking and were raised locally and are part of the community so that they can address that. Look how ARCAT is my task force, by the way, but look at all the agencies, legal agencies, law enforcement agencies it took to bring this together, and it brought in a lot of money. So I want to talk about labor trafficking, and labor trafficking doesn't get a lot of look at, but I am really concerned with the unaccompanied minors. So let me make something very clear. I know a lot of people from Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras, and they're lovely people. And so I have several of them that are quite close friends, and I don't ask any questions about documentation. I don't care. But I also know that there are a lot of people preying on those people, that it's an entire industry, and that they will end up having, once they get here, they pay a coyote money. Now they're here, the coyote wants more money. And you're not seeing busloads of coyotes go home. That means they're staying in our community. And one of the things that scares me about what I'm seeing crossing the border for 170,000 people last month is almost half of them are young males who are 15 to 17 years old. I'm sure a bunch of them are great guys. It's the other guys I don't know about, and which ones are preying on which. And that is going to be some of the challenge. So this is exactly what happened in this case. They were a young man from Guatemala. They were only 14 years old. A couple of them were 15. They were told they could get a job and go to school and get a place to live. Usually what you'll see in labor trafficking is a particular nationality will prey on its own. So a Guatemalan, this young Guatemalan girl turned him over to coyotes who then put them into trafficking. She was arrested for falsifying documentation. But that's a typical thing, that you trust your own. If somebody came to me with a deal and they're from Hungary, I'm probably not going to trust them as quick as if they're from Long Beach, because you trust your own. And that's what was going on here. I'm going to play you a real quick movie. I have a lot to cover, but I just want you to see this. I hope I got it loud enough. Wait a minute. I think I've got it loud enough. Let's see. I think it's loud enough. Okay.
Tu deuda a tu papá le voy a ir a dar unos 2 o 3 plomazos. Él estaba asustado y él estaba preocupado, llorándome a mí, llamándome que yo luchara yo por él. Entonces yo le dije que sí, yo voy a tratar la manera. Entonces yo tuve que hablar con el sheriff.
One day I received a phone call. There was a gentleman that had a nephew that had been smuggled into the country from Guatemala and was being kept to work against his will in Ohio. And within 24 hours, I had a conference call from the head of the FBI, HSI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in that region.
2 months later, federal and local law enforcement moved in.
A human trafficking bust at an egg farm in Maryland.
In the early morning hours, they raided the trailer park where the teens had been living.
Federal prosecutors call it modern-day slavery.
Their paychecks kept by their traffickers.
They detained approximately 45 people.
The human trafficking operation was run by a third-party contractor hired by Trillium Farms.
At least 10, they determined, were victims of trafficking, including 8 minors.
And the U.S. Attorney's Office says its investigation is ongoing.
So I'm going to leave that at that. But one of the things I wanted you to see there is that you notice his first concern is they're going to shoot his dad. And when you're working with victims of foreign trafficking, you have to remember the power of what is going on there, the hold these people have, not about what you're going to do to them, but what you're going to do to the family back home. The other thing is that he called the sheriff. I believe that's only going to happen because of the fact that he trusted the sheriff enough to do that. That's why we built the style of task force that we built in Coachella, is that you have to build that long-term community trust. Another thing is that even though it took only 48 hours to have everybody come together, it took 2 months before they were rescued. If you're a victim and you're afraid for your family, that is forever. But the purpose of that is this is an international investigation. In the end, they brought in 45 people. You know, if they had raced in there, they would not get the full rig. And that, you know, anytime you get international, you have to find out who the bad guy is. You have to infiltrate the organization, go undercover. You have to find out who's doing the recruiting back home, who's doing the selling, and who's doing the keeping them captive. And so that's why it takes a long time. So bottom line, for foreign national trafficking victims, whether they're documented or with appropriate visas, and many people come in with student and work visas that get trafficked. Just because they're on US soil doesn't mean they're free to go. And that's an important thing to remember. Now, this was the first Asian case that I saw. Actually, in this case, it's a Chinese case out of San Gabriel. And it really got my attention. And since then, I've seen 5 cases just like this. Jerry Wang is the main guy in the middle. His girlfriend's on the left and his sister's on the right. They all live in an apartment complex in San Gabriel. And what was happening is this started out of Camarillo, up by Ventura. And by the way, I've spoke with those people up there several times, and they've gotten their own task force, and they're doing amazingly well. I love them to death. Anyway, what happened is they found a girl in a hotel that looked too young. That task force was going through the ads, going, this girl looks too young, and they set up a date. And normally the girl would never cooperate, but she was young and she was afraid for her friend down in Ventura. So they were able to connect to the girl in Ventura, and they kept pulling the strings. They went to the franchise tax board to follow the money. Before it was over, they had 28 victims. They know there's a lot more on that. But this thing was so large, it ran from Ventura out to Palm Springs and down to San Diego, and yes, throughout Orange County. And this is all about money laundering. They are bringing these girls in, and they think they're going to be students. Can you imagine what that's like to be a victim? I mean, you think they come to your community at a little town in in some little town in China and say, your daughter can go to UCR and we'll give her transportation and housing and we'll take care of her. All you have to do is raise this amount of money. And they get here, and the next thing you know, they're in a van, they drive by UCR, and they end up out in a massage parlor where they will never be free. And that is these people. They were advertising all over the state. And I want to talk to you in a minute about how important that is. This thing is so large that when you, the sex buyer, call for your date, you get a telemarketing center. And I have now seen 5 rings like this where you report in to a telemarketing center. And this is all about money laundering. They had 9 banks with 50 different bank accounts in it. So what do? I train escrow companies. I train banks, private bank. I just did not too long ago. And, I train real estate and title companies because they put in straw buyers at the end. They take back loans. They're turning money over. So I speak to real estate organizations. That's what's going on here. So they're advertising them. These girls were treated terribly. Keep in mind, they thought they were going to be student. Okay, this one's out of Chino Hills and Irvine and Minnesota and North Dakota. Again, ran by a woman in this case. She and her daughter, when they picked them up, they had $1.5 million in cash on them. So she and her daughter are bringing these women in, and they are being moved around and put out for sex. Now, I'm sorry if this offends you, but I want you to see the severity of what these victims are going through and why we need to come out of our comfort zone and do what we need to do to focus on assisting these large-scale foreign national rings. These women were advertised on Backpage. They were in debt bondage. They had to pay for their driver. They had to get breast implants. They had to pay for their ad. They had to pay for the motel room. Then they didn't get any money after the sex ad. Look how big this thing is, 20,000 ads. That's easily 100,000 sex acts that is taking place here. I'm sorry, this is disgusting, but when they found this townhome right here, where's the townhome? I did put in that townhome. Doggone it, I'm going to come back. I put that townhome in. Anyway, when they found these people in a townhome, there was a line of men waiting outside to go in and have sex with 3 women. And I say to myself, what kind of man is this that waits in line with a lot of other men? You know, you're not going to see Julia Robertson make love. This is craziness when you look at it. It's all about money laundering. It is absolutely huge. Here's another ring where the sex selling was taking place in Oregon, Washington, and Vancouver, but the sex buying is taking place in a telemarketing center in Temecula. This is called supermatchescorts.com. One of the things I want you to start to visualize here when I get to cyber sex on demand is it doesn't really matter where you're at when you're running one of these rings. If they put up one of these sex sites, they can call into a centralized location and dispatch out the girls there. And so I want you to get that in your mind. I'm going to show you something that's disturbing and somewhat disgusting, but I want you to get the idea, and then I'll get away from it in a minute here. There we go. So why did I show you that? Here's how it works and why technology is so important in this fight. Because what happens here is they will take an ad like this one, and they may place that in 18 different cities up and down the coast simultaneously. Obviously, the girl can't be in all 18 cities. And so what will happen is that the sex buyer calls in thinking that girl is right there in town. They get the telemarketing center. She uses her GPS system and dispatches out a driver with a girl, and that's how it works. So in the old days, what I would do with the task force is I would go on the sex ads back when it was Backpage. I don't go on now. They're just way too raunchy. But Backpage was kind of like a Carl's Jr. ad, so it wasn't a big deal. I could handle it, but it's changed anyway. But I would look, and what I do is I would take the girl's photo and I would drag and drop that over to Google Images, and it would show me all the places this girl's photo appears. And if she was with another girl, I'd drag and drop that one so I could see all the places the other girl appears. And if it was like she was going to be in Colton, she was in Colton, but now she's in El Monte, and tomorrow she's going to be in LA and then into Long Beach, I would realize it's a small group that is moving along in a sex trafficking circuit. But when you get something like this, where you're advertised in 18 different cities and it pops up, you realize that you're into one of these large scale rings. Well, the reason I take your time to point that out is Thorne and some other people. Thorne is Justin Ashton Kushner. Okay, forgot his name. He's got more money than I do anyway. But he bought a whole bunch of software for law enforcement agencies, and I'm proud of him. I wouldn't know if I met him, but I'm proud of him. Because what can happen now is when the crime analyst comes in the morning, they can get a report to show where all those girls and all the photos are being sent. And that will very quickly tell them, do I need a big multidisciplinary team of people all up and down the state with the FBI or Homeland Security, or do I just need to be able to work this with a separate county? And that's where it works. So there's a critical need for significant technology investment to support law enforcement. Public photo tracking allows photos to determine if it's a small ring or a large ring. Okay, so social media grooming. I'm going to move on now into some trends. Social media is about 90% of the cases. The advanced technology for sextortion and recruitment will challenge law enforcement and the chain of evidence and securing prosecutions. This is getting more and more difficult, especially if this starts moving into encryption, where they can't go in and see the ad. If they start to pay through cryptocurrency on a massive basis, it's going to be hard to track. Sextortion and social media cases have greatly increased during the COVID pandemic. More victims are, this is a trend I'm seeing that just scares the socks off me. We are seeing more and more kids get up out of their bed in the middle of the night and sneak out. And by the time mom and dad know they're gone, they're on an airplane somewhere. There's another trend that really upsets me, and that there more and more, these pedophiles are showing our kids other kids having sexual relationships with other kids, encouraging and teaching our children to be pedophiles themselves by violating another child and taking a photo of it. It's all part of a game. And this is a really scary trend that I don't like. So I've written a book called Societal Shift. It is what our movie is to be all about. This year, it was supposed to happen last year, but because of COVID, it didn't. This year, for the first time in history, the entire world will be connected by internet. I like to say it's the first time since the Tower of Babel that God's allowed us to come together, but I'm not sure if that's like, theologically sound. So don't take my word on that. But it's an interesting thought when you realize that we are alive and we have a ministry and a mission at a time that the entire world is going to be connected. And I could do a whole hour on that subject, but I won't. I want you to think about the fringe benefits or the fringe implications of that, because our kids will be the first generation in all of history that can reach the entire world, but the entire world can also reach our kids. And by the way, that's true of kids in very poor countries. I work a lot out of Cambodia, and 65% of Cambodians now, even though they're living in a grass hut with a dirt floor, have a little phone called Same but Different. It's not an iPhone, but they can talk and they can gain access. So I'm not against technology. In fact, I believe in controls. I believe in contracts. I believe in discussion, but I don't believe that we can take a child and hide them in a closet and this will pass one day. It isn't. We are just getting started, and so we have to teach our children to live in a world of technology in a way that will honor God, honor themselves, and use respect and responsibility. I think it's very exciting. I agree I'm on the high end of this generation, but I get to play this too. This is amazing stuff. Even the poorest child in the world can get a free Harvard education if they decide to do that because they have access to technology. I would challenge you to make cyber missionaries out of your kids. You know, if they're going to raise money to dig a well in Kenya, then live stream over and talk to the kids while they're digging the well and do it together. There are many healthy uses for technology. I believe that most of our kids will have careers we don't even know names for today. Hopefully, some of them will be in like forensic psychology and law enforcement and technology forensics. But there is a challenge here because our kids are technology geniuses, even when they're 5 and 6 and 7 years old. They get on there, they know how to upload, download, they can install an app, and your little tracker will never know what's on there. They've got this thing handled, and we're running along behind them going, you be careful on that thing now. So it is hard to stay up for this, and many parents have a veil of denial. And this is one of the reasons I wanted both the movie and the documentary is help our society lower that veil of denial and get involved with your kids. Talk to your kids about digital morality. I think that's a very important thing. Technology is not bad or good. Technology is no different than a car. You know, you can get in a car and go to university and get a degree, or go to a church and have a good experience, or you can go to a strip club and get yourself in trouble. It is not the car that did the deal. It is how you chose to do that. And that's what we have to talk to our kids about. One of the things that scares me to death is we are doing this younger and younger. I love this little kid on the left, by the way. He's like me. How's that work? You know? But those two kids cannot tell you if they're on just a little kid's game device or the World Wide Web, which I suspect they're on the World Wide Web. And it's, you know, many of the cases I've handled this year make my heart break. When you have a 7 or 8-year-old kid, think about what they know. They want to be cute. They want to be loved. They want everybody to like them. And they don't want the man on the other end to get in trouble. And it's just playing a game. And when they want a picture of your pee-pee, it's just, you know, bathroom humor. And they see that as a game. And they are not able, because they haven't had an adult sex talk and they don't understand adult sex, they're not able to process what is about to happen if we don't start to come up with ways to discuss that. It's a home without walls because 87% of kids sleep with their phone. And I am going to tell you, in case after case after case, I have seen where that kid gets up in the middle of the night and sneaks off, and the parents never know they're gone until they're found on an airplane. A world without borders for our kids is a world without borders for pimps, pedophiles, gangs, cartels, and organized crime. And we cannot scare the dickens out of our kids, but it is unfair to put them out there without explaining the world they live in. And that is really what our work is all about. You add to it that this year there are coming together 4 major technologies that are going to change everything. And I'm going to share these with you in a small amount of way today to let you know. But first, I want to just kind of breathe this in with domestic sex trafficking. We are seeing domestic sex trafficking rings that are controlled by gangs while they're in prison. I can give you 5 cases where they're doing it while in prison. One of the things I wanted to do in Riverside was get my DA a dog so that they can, one of those, thumb drive sniffing dogs, so they can sniff cell phones and like that. But my DA got a grant, so I didn't have to do it. But that's one of the things that I think is important for cities, is to be able to get a dog or somebody to get those contraband phones out of jails and out of prisons, because you will see this is actually being ran from prison. It's usually associated with other crimes. The cases are showing where the trend, the victims are younger and younger. Most of our cases out here in Southern California are gang related, and it really is all about money. I mean, we have the Sinaloa cartel out here. We have the Crips out here in a big way, and that is what is driving this. Gangs are changing because of technology. You don't see them like standing around on a street corner with their baggy pants like you used to be. That's because they use encryption. MS-13 has VPN. If you ever see VPN on a phone and you think somebody is involved in trafficking, you need to ask a lot of questions. That's virtual private network. It is encrypted messaging. They're using dating sites in a big way. I had to take them out because I had too much other stuff I wanted to share you with. But the Dog Pound Gang and the Bulldog Gang out of Fresno both use dating sites. The Dog Pound Gang was making $30,000 a week in Fresno selling teenagers that they met on the dating sites. The Bulldog Gangs was a cartel, large scale, older guys, and they would prey on lonely women on dating sites across the United States, get them absolutely in love with them, think they're going to marry them, swoop in there, and the next thing you know, they are involved in trafficking. This is a tragic case, and I want you to see this case because there's a lesson here that I think is important. I went to dinner with the victim's parents in this case. She is an absolute beautiful girl who was adopted when she was 1. Her family spiritually sound, financially sound, beautiful family up out of Madeira, up by Fresno. They gave her just about everything, including the good support she needed. But she was about 14 and a half when she began to take a lot of chances, send those photos like that. She was now 16. She borrowed a phone and she hooked up with one of these guys from Moreno Valley out here by Riverside. He drove the 200 miles to Madeira and got her, brought her down here, and she was not put out on the sex sites like I showed you. She was traded amongst gang members for almost a month. We could never have found her because she wasn't advertised anywhere. I share that with you because I like to think that if I can stop sex buying, then I'll stop sex selling. Well, you'll decrease a lot of it, and in this case, you won't. They trade these girls, when you get in one of these rings like this, they trade these girls for spite, and they trade them for favors. And for almost a month, we got wind of it. Our guys did. They were trying to track her down. We heard that it was brutal. As they were about to rescue her, she was traded to Ventura. And our guys went to Ventura trying to rescue her. They looked for almost 2 weeks, couldn't find her. She had been traded to Bakersfield gangs. Bakersfield kept her a little while and traded her up to Fresno gang, and Fresno traded her back to Madeira. This is horrible. I mean, you will never, ever recover from this kind of thing. Her family shared all of it with me. They have gotten her out of the area into a recovery place that she can live in. You know, she's got 5 gangs trying to keep her from testifying. On top of it, this is not, I share this, I know this is hard news, but I share this with you because every now and then you see this like really nasty guy, like 44 and a 14-year-old girl. And you say to yourself, how did that girl end up with that nasty guy? She didn't choose that. She started on a dating site and then was traded, and that needs to be understood. I'm going to come back to this later. If we have time and you want to hear it, I'd like to show it to you, but I'm kind of got some other things I want to hit here in a minute. What are they looking for? You do not have to be pretty. These people will sell a 500-pound purple elephant. They do not care what you look like. I talk with kids all the time and I share that with them. All they're looking for is low-hanging fruit, available and vulnerable. Somebody willing to play on the internet. You know, I'm going to slow down a minute. I'm going to show you this.
She escaped from a man in early February who she says pimped her out for years. Police arrested him days later. His name is Ariel Guizar, but he's known on social media as Shy Boy.
Do you call him Shy Boy, or do you
I call him Shy.
You call him Shy?
Yeah, that's what everybody really calls him. Like, they know him by Shy.
The teen tells us she met Guizar on Instagram when she was just 15 years old.
I came across his tattooing page on Instagram and saw he had a lot of followers, and I liked his tattoos, so I would like his pictures, and then he started liking mine, and he would comment on my pictures, and we exchanged numbers.
Unhappy at home, and after years of being in and out of the court system, she ran away, agreeing to meet up with the then 33-year-old man, thinking they would have a relationship. I asked her when it all changed.
He would have sex with other girls, like, in front of me and stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, like, it's not like how I thought, but I don't know. And then that's when he had his friends go to the hotel room and, like, have them, like, basically do whatever they wanted with me. And when I told him about it, he didn't care.
It was that same day in a motel in San Jose when she says she first started prostituting for him.
The first time I worked for him, I only had probably like about like 5 to like 8 guys a day.
Like the assistance of an attorney, Mr. Weezar.
Weezar, seen here in court, is charged with pimping a minor, pandering, forcible rape, along with felony drug and weapons charges. In response to questions about his charges, public defender Milani Bartholomew gave us a no comment. Police say Weezar advertised Bianca and other girls on Backpage.com and his social media accounts.
I'll be posting videos soon.
We found posts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. Bianca tells us he posted a video of her with a client. She tried to leave, and he forced her to stay.
So I told me that if I had anybody try to pick me up, that he would kill them before they took off with me. When I started working for him again, it was up to like more than 20 guys a day, because he would tell us, you guys have to make $1,000 and then you guys could go to sleep.
When asked why she agreed to do this interview, Bianca says she's worried for other girls like her.
Because if a guy loved you, he wouldn't have you having sex with other guys for money. He would be the one that wants to be your only one.
So that's a tough one to set through, I know. But one of the things I want you to see, I've written a book called Seduce: The Grooming of America's Teenagers, is the power of that fantasy relationship. She found him on social media. And that is what is happening with all the TikToks that are out there. I just read an article today where India and Bangladesh are trying to take down TikTok because the girls go on and they see these things, and then somebody offers them a chance to go out and make a movie, and they meet up and they end up trafficking. What I share with kids is all you have to be is available and vulnerable. The way you stand against this is you know who you are and what you stand for, and you don't take chances. You don't be low-hanging fruit. I mean, I believe if she met that guy on the street, she probably would, and without the fantasy relationship, she probably wouldn't have been anywhere near wanting to be attracted to him. Did you notice the way he's posting the ads while he's in jail? So it's just about being available and vulnerable. These dating sites are very popular. Tinder is the #1 site for meeting up with guys online that ends up in trafficking. But now kids aren't dating, they're hooking up. There's this no expectation of commitment. I had a girl in a high school tell me, you have to send them a photo or they won't go out with you. And you're saying, well, what kind of date are you going to have if they've already seen everything? This is an interesting concept. They look for signs like this. You're posting, mom and dad are fighting, I don't feel well tonight. I'm not going to go to school. All of those, I broke up with my boyfriend. They're looking for any point of weakness that they can come in and rescue. So I want to turn now to TikTok. Now, I'm not against TikTok. I'm on it, and it can be a lot of fun. TikTok itself is not bad. But here's the challenge. TikTok is the latest generation of technology, and we are just getting started. If we meet again this time next year, TikTok will seem like MySpace to you and me, because this stuff is advancing. But TikTok literally, and like and bite, your profile is public. If you want to go viral, your profile is public. Now you can be private and not go public on it and like that, but you're not going to go viral. And so kids like to be out there where they can go viral. This may be changing, but right now the photos have GPS on them. So if you make that video in your bedroom, they can tell where you live. Now I'm hearing that TikTok's changing that. But what happens is that now, instead of like Facebook, where you have 45 followers and you can friend and unfriend, you literally send it out there by category. And all a pedophile has to do is sign up for the interesting categories, and they can now text back to you. So it's mass audience, two-way communication. So to give you an idea, mom says to me, when I was talking one day, a mom said, my daughter has over 1 million users. And I'm like, wow, not users, 1 million followers. I said, well, that's impressive. How old is she? Well, she's 11. So mom, let's think about this a minute. Your 11-year-old girl has 1 million people who like her. What percentage of 1 million are pedophiles? At least 1%. That's 10,000 pedophiles. Is an 11-year-old girl ready to stand against that? These pedophiles will wait in the room. They'll send her a text, and they're just playing the numbers game. They send it back to everybody. Hey, baby, you're really hot. You know, meet me on Instagram. They will always move you to another app to, first of all, make sure you're not a cop, and two, to see if you'll follow. They'll say, you're really hot. Meet me on Instagram. Hey, get me a bunch more of those videos, and I'll get you famous. I'll work on a deal for you. And it's just like that to trick a kid. And that's exactly what is happening all around the world. So along with it, I'm going to tell you that by the end of this year, most of your apps will have some sort of cryptocurrency. Like you have Bitcoin in your video gaming. Right now, Facebook is trying to bring out Diem. They're negotiating with our Congress. TikTok, I didn't tell you this, but they're a Chinese app out of Singapore by ByteDance. And what is happening is that they're the largest app in the world. They beat out Facebook and Instagram. If Chinese Bitcoin starts to align itself with TikTok and Facebook's Diem aligns itself with Facebook, Instagram, you're going to see a global cryptocurrency war, and our kids are going to be the audience. So I did want to throw this in for you in case any of you are parents. TikTok Thought, as spelled that way, is the pornographic version of TikTok. So now I want to talk a minute about webcam sex, and I'm going to be just a little late, but not too much, I think. Okay, so this is my opinion, not the Department of Justice, but I'm going to tell you I'm right, and I'm just that stubborn to tell you that. But I have watched this trend, especially through the COVID thing. What you have seen on COVID, what do I know about pedophiles? They're obsessive compulsive behavior. And now they're out there on COVID, locked in, away from work, in front of a screen, and they are doing more and more pornography than they ever did before. On top of it, what you have seen is an incredible increase in viewership of amateur pornography. And I started this theory way back when Backpage was still in business. I did a research study 31 days before they went out. Here in the Inland Empire, there were 96,000 ads in Riverside and San Bernardino in one category on Backpage. That's how prolific it was. Anyway, but one of the things I began to notice is they were selling video subscription and their Backpage ads. This is 2018. Well, now what is happening is you have all this interactivity because of TikTok, right? And Byte and Like and all of those. So you think about, why would a pimp take a girl over to a motel for $100? He's got to have them pay for the motel. He can be caught by a reverse sting by the sheriff. She could get an STD. She could get beat up and the guy not pay. And they had one client all night, when in fact that same girl can be selling 2,000 video views an hour and collecting subscription money on it. And every 5-10 minutes you go off and you pay by the minute to have a personal conversation with her. And as I began to realize that there are also a world full of third world people who are living on $10 a day that will get in front of webcams or be forced in front of webcams. So I started researching it. And the webcam business, according to the man who runs cams.com, and he ought to know because he's in the business, it was a $10 billion business in late 2019. I cannot find the latest ones, but 10 billion, you talk about money laundering, because there's no real delivery of services. And all of that is going in on cryptocurrency, which will be hard to track. So webcam sex, what we started to see during COVID, just took off. Live Jasmine last year before COVID had 40 million visitors a day. So I'm saying to myself, let's suppose that each one of those guys paid $20 a month to be able to be one of those visitors. That's $80 million that they're doing somewhere along the line. All they've got to do is have the talent in front of a webcam to provide that. Well, after that, Pornhub came out with their numbers. And every year I have followed Pornhub because they're the largest in the world, or they were. I think they're second now or third because of what has happened. But I never look at the porn. I only look at their data for what it's worth. That's very important to me. But what happened is Pornhub came out, and one of the things that we saw was it had become, over COVID, it had become very interactive, and they had had a huge number of amateur video providers join them. And what they're seeing is more and more monthly subscription for this live chat and specialized services. And so I started looking at this. And then the other one that caught my attention is 87% of porn viewers are view from a mobile device. Well, think about how addictive that is. You know, you stop at a street light, that thing is on the seat of the car next to you. It's on your desk while you're trying to work. It's in your hand while you go off to the bathroom. And on top of it, you're not just looking at some fixed picture, you're engaging in that. In fact, you get favorites that you can go over and talk to. And you begin to get that same fantasy relationship that teenager does. And you're saying to yourself, I'm not cheating on my wife because I'm not really doing anything with her. Everybody will tell you sex on the internet is not sex because it's not real. I'm like, really? I had a youth group tell me sin on the internet was not sin because it wasn't real. I'm wondering how that'll work out for him. But anyway, you know, think about how addictive this is going to be. Where night after night, maybe you get in a fight with your wife, you just go right off to your girl and you pay some money and you're just talking to her, but you're talking sex and you're seeing where this is really taking off. I'm going to show you in a minute, but this is a billion-dollar business a year and a half ago in the Philippines of violating children. Well, of the fastest growing categories is amateur videos. So I started looking at Pornhub because their number one category was amateur videos. I'm thinking, what is driving this? And I went on Pornhub before they took this down, and this is an actual copy of their website. And what they were doing was offering our kids a chance to make $40,000 a month. Oh, by the way, a few housewives too, $40,000 a month. And they show you how to do it to send your naked photo. Well, what happened is they started getting sued because of the changes in laws, and MasterCharge Visa shut them off. They shut them off on December 10th, and by December 15th, Pornhub had taken down almost 80% of their entire library of kids, our kids sending in naked photos, thinking they're going to be porn stars and make some money. And so they literally took down over 9 million videos in 5 days that were child pornography or underage sex providers that would not meet the public standards. That is after MasterCharge Visa shut them off. Now, I'm not going to give MasterCharge Visa a chance to say that they did the wonderful holier than thou thing. I think they thought they were going to be enjoined in that lawsuit, and which was $440 million, and decided that maybe they shouldn't supply services, but that's my opinion. So 2 quick segments here, and then we will close. I want to talk about sextortion, and I want to take a second, if you'll stay with me. This is very important to me. I agree with what you're saying, that incurring income is similar to overcoming drugs. Yeah. Okay, I have struggled with this question for a long time. Every time I sit with a family, every time I see a case of a kid being violated, I say, who's really at fault? I mean, we're holding Google and Facebook and Instagram, and trust me, I'm not their friend. Thanks a lot to them taking me off. But I say to myself, we are telling them that you are going to be responsible for the content. And if as something bad happens on there, we can sue you. Well, that's an interesting discussion when you think about it, because I thought of Facebook as something like AT&T. I paid for a service, I have a right to say what I want. You don't have a right to tell me what I can say. But to my surprise, when this whole thing came down, they were absolutely right. I have never paid Facebook a dime, you know, and how did they get to be $1 trillion business? Because they're selling everything about me. But now the US Congress is saying, you are responsible for the content. And they're saying, but we're not posting the content, the public is. And they're saying, then you need to take it down. We're going to hold you responsible and fine you, and people can sue you if they've been violated on the content. And they're saying if we are responsible for our content of what other people post, then we can decide who gets to post and who doesn't. It's our house and house rules. And they do have a point there. Having said that, they also have, I sound like I'm defending them. Trust me, I'm not. But it is logical to think this out. And on top of it, when you download that app, I don't have my phone here, but you download that app, you agree to a whole slew of terms that you don't read, mom and dad. You just hit, I agree. So I look at this, and every time there's a case like the one I'm about to show you, I say, who is responsible? Is it the app company? Is it mom and dad? I mean, they're paying for it and they agreed. Or is it the kid? Because you're telling me the kid's responsible enough to have the phone. So I have to agree with you, your kid must be responsible. So this man had 40 victims. Most of them were 8-year-old girls. By the way, he had a daughter of his own. He's married. He lives in Lubbock, Texas. She lives in Texas. He lives in Ohio. A world without borders. This is what I mean in my book, A World Without Borders, because you no longer worry about the sex offender in the neighborhood that you go for, because it does not matter where you're at. That sex offender, as long as your child's online, can reach your child. And that's what happened. But this one got my attention because I saw mom on a video saying, this monster came into my child's life and stole her innocence. Oh my, I don't disagree with that. I agree with that 100%. But I started reading this and I say to myself, this 8-year-old girl sent him 2,400 messages in a month. That is 80 a day. 1,700 photos, that's 30 a day. She made 2 videos a day and sent them. Do you know what it's like to make a video and upload and download? And she's ooh-hooing him. She's 8. Now, I look at this and it's just horrible. Look what has happened to this child, because this is what the man told her to do. Okay. And this is why I'm saying that I'm very concerned that they're making pedophiles out of our children to teach them to engage with other children. They are seeing horrible adult sex acts long before they ever go through puberty, before they get their moral identity, their sexual identity, their relationship identity, their self-worth identity. And this is happening to millions of kids all over the United States. And this is, I believe, the superhighway to sex trafficking victims. But I look at this and I say, wait a minute. If this girl's allowed to send 80 messages and 30 photos and 2 videos a day, who is responsible here? She's 8. Who's paying for it? Who's checking this? Is it really the app company's fault or the iPad's fault? And I struggle with that. Sextortion is one of the fastest growing crimes in America and one of the least acknowledged, which is why we want this moving. This is prior to COVID. Center for Disease Control said 18,000 kids a day are sending a naked photo. I think that number is probably 3 to 5 times more, maybe bigger. University of Florida, 9,000 kids a day are being blackmailed. The scary number for me is 58% of kids will go out and meet their pedophile, trying to negotiate back that photo before they will tell anybody. So I talk with parents all the time, and this is something where I believe you really can put together a ministry. Parents need to know how to handle this, because what will happen is that the first thing the parent will do is grab the phone and go, do you have a naked photo on the internet? That is shame-based right to the core. On top of it, they're not going to admit to it if they think they're going to lose their phone. And so we talk about that. The reason this is so important is you're starting to see large-scale sextortion rings. This one, they were 9 of them. They never met. They look like brothers. They meet, these are pedophiles who meet online. They determine that the other one is a pedophile. They build trust. They get the codes to go in the dark web. I'll show you that in a minute. And then they began to go out. And in this case, they had thousands of victims, young girls who never knew they were talking to 9 different men. How do you take and teach a 9-year-old to stand against these 9 pedophiles who are smarter than them? They lived all over the United States. Now, this is going to get heavy, so take a deep breath. But this is where I believe there's a desperate need for a mission. I wrote an entire chapter in this in Societal Shift. One of the reasons they won't tell is they don't understand their shame. Because look around, all of a sudden you are being blackmailed, you can't go to school, you can't sleep. And this is what I tell parents, the behavior you look for, they can't sleep, they won't go to school, their grades may drop, they may start cutting, they may shut down, or they may get hyper emotional, everything's a blow up, they may start running away, they may try to commit suicide. In some cases they do. And the reason for that is the shame moves in and they look around, and it isn't like Uncle Bob or Uncle Joe. I don't know who's on here. I hate to use somebody's name, but it isn't like some bad guy had come in the middle of the night and sexually molested them. They were lured in and they willingly gave that photo. And now they are experiencing a level of shame, multiple levels of shame they can't understand, especially if they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And the family is experiencing it too, as I share this. When I talk with kids, I explain to them the minute you send a naked photo, even if it's to somebody close to you, it can be intercepted. The minute you send that naked photo, you're in a prison. And the only way out of the prison is to tell somebody. And what we have to do is train school resource officers and counselors and Sunday school teachers and parents that when they come to you and say, I did this, we don't look at them and go, what the heck were you thinking? That we have compassion and that we understand. Now, what I'm going to share with you as a parent is if you suspect someone in your life has got that, I highly recommend that males work with sons and females work with daughters. I know that is not popular in today's gender neutral world, but what I have seen is when dad sees daughters in a compromising way, it takes them to a place that's hard to recover from. And it's something similar with sons and mothers. So if you think you see this in your family, you simply get very quiet, get absolutely grounded, and sit and talk with your son or daughter and say, I see you dealing with something really deep and I'm concerned for you. Is it anything you want to talk about? Is it possible that you might be dealing with a photo on the internet? And then get very quiet. If they don't come forward, say, I hope you don't, but if you do, I'm right here. You are not alone. We are going to get through this together. We will have to go to the police. And then when you start seeing all those photos, I'm telling you, it will kill you because, these kids insert things in their bodies and do all kinds of crazy things at the direction of somebody trying not to be blackmailed. But do not delete those photos. Photos shoot them. So screenshot, but then say we have to go to internet crimes against children, and we do. Do not go on there and tell the guy, oh, we know you're a bad guy and we're going to the police. Simply take it and contact your cyber crimes unit, your vice unit, or internet crimes against children, or report it as quickly as you can to NECMEC. But that's important to do that because oftentimes the police can get there first and act like your child and begin to run the IP addresses, find out where the perpetrator is. These guys never have only one victim. One of my greatest concerns is for our children that their first sexual encounter is going to be a virtual sexual encounter. And if it's one that is shame-based, it will change the trajectory of their life for the rest of their life. And this is really, in my opinion, where the work of the faith-based community comes in, to let them know there is forgiveness, that there is renewed self-worth, to help them walk through this so that as they're starting out their relationships, they don't have to start out in shame-based. Fathers need a lot of help with this. I was saying earlier before I started today, I dealt with a father that just really brought this home. Fine man. His daughter had inserted things and he could not unsee it. And he couldn't sleep, he couldn't work. He's mad at his wife, blaming the wife for it, blaming himself, blaming the phone, blaming the app company, looking at her like she's damaged goods. I think we need to talk to our kids about damaged goods. I think fear of damaged goods is the greatest fear of all mankind. And as long as you're a loved child of God, there is no such thing as damaged goods. And so when you have that kind of victory, we need to work with that. And I also believe the whole family needs counseling. And especially if the marriage is somewhat fractured, or he's got a porn addiction, or she has a porn addiction. You never know these days. I'm going to show you a couple of quick cases and close with child pornography. This is one of my insider alerts. This girl was 13. She lived in Bakersfield. She went online. She was cute. She was vivacious. She was smart. She was popular. She went online. She hooked up with De La Cruz. Let me see this guy right here, Armando Cruz. We don't know quite what happened. She sent a photo. They met up the first time. We don't know if it was friendly or not, but there was oral sex involved, according to Cruz. The second time, she actually put her bedding in her clothes and her bedding so mom and dad would not know she was gone. She was last seen getting in that truck in the middle of the night. Later on, she was heard screaming. Later, they found her body. She had been raped and strangled and raped again, and her body was burned. This young lady, if she was alive, would tell you it can happen to you. This is a case that just happened not long ago that I did an insider alert, and the mother from Australia contacted me. She somewhere on the internet picked up that I'd done an insider alert on her case and told me how proud she was that somebody would tell her daughter's story without hurting her daughter. But in this case, the man lives in Beaverton, Oregon, and the little 9-year-old girl is in Australia. They would never meet, but they met online. And before long, he's starting to get sexual with her. This happened 3 years ago. He coerced her into sending naked photos over Snapchat and TikTok. Okay, do you get what I'm saying? She's 9. She automatically knows how to send photos over Snapchat and TikTok. You and I'd still be trying to figure this out, but she did. At the same time, he's sending her sexually explicit photos. These are photos of men having child pornography with toddlers. This 9-year-old's first sexual experience is one like that. When she tried to tell him, I'm only 9, he sent her pictures of animals that were beaten and injured. Finally, she blocks his account, and it looks like mom went to the police, and it became one of those large-scale international things. But I want you to see something on here. He contacted her friends on TikTok and started distributing those photos on her friends. She's only 9 years old. She's starting out her life with that reputation. So NECMEC was involved. Australia investigators get involved. There were 13 other reports. What I want you to see is, even though this is an international case of a very young girl, this guy is prolific. Many of these people have thousands of victims. I'm not going to do these, but I want you to see. If you want to stay on afterwards, I'll come back to them. But in this one here, what happened? Okay, whoa. Anyway, it was a boy in Escondido. He was 12 years, no, the boy in Escondido was 14. He met in a video game chat room. He bonded with this guy. The guy flew out from Orlando, picked him up. He went to school and picked him up at school. He boarded a plane with that man at LAX, and it was only when he didn't come home from school that night that the parents realized that, and they started going back onto his video game accounts. They had warned the pedophile before that they would take action, and that is not the right thing to do. But they figured out that he had flown out, and so the FBI quickly got together and picked them both up as they were getting off the plane in Orlando. Same thing with this case right here. This man is a pedophile running a child pornography ring, 12-year-old girl. He's from Virginia. He flies out. She sneaks out of her bedroom in the middle of the night before mom and dad can figure out where she is at. She is rescued over in Denver airport, laying over. I think an airline stewardess recognized it. But here she is, sneaking out her bed halfway across the country before the parents know she's gone. So I want to share with you what Saddleback can do. I'm missing something. Oh, let me come back. Okay, just a couple of things. Develop an in-house tech assistant team for parents to check phones. I think that's one of the first things, because parents panic when their kid is gone. And so you can conduct sessions and train parents, or you can provide that service. Talk with your kids about how sextortion works and why they never want to go and meet up, because they will get violated in this case. Develop a youth leadership team to train others about how predators use apps. I'd be happy to guide you in that if you don't know. Have your youth group talk about digital morality. Is it okay to kill cops in those video games? Is it okay to have sex with prostitutes in video games? So this is CSAM, and then we're through. This is child pornography. You see, at the heart of sextortion is the need to get these photos for child pornographers who are building large-scale libraries and sharing them. That is why they're out there tricking those kids into getting those photos so they can share them with other child pornographers. So what is happening is that pedophiles will meet in the clear web, and they will get the exact dark web address and go in the dark web and build large-scale libraries. So there's a lot taking place in the dark web. If you think of the internet as a bucket of water, the top 3% is where we live. We have Google and Chrome. We have search engines. We can find each other. The deep web is big corporations like NSA. And then the dark web, you have to have a special browser to get in there. You cannot just go from the surface web to the dark web. You need a special router. The more affluent kids are the ones that know about this and get them. It is called Tor, the onion router, Tor. So if you ever see a kid with a .onion account, I spoke at a Christian school before COVID. 12-year-old boy in a Christian school had his own .onion account, was looking at hardcore porn every night. If you ever see a kid with a .onion account, they need to be reported. No child should ever be in the dark web. So what happens is these pedophiles meet in the clear web, and they get exact addresses and codes to go in the dark web and share their videos. And that's why they are trying to trick our kids into sending those photos. This one here is the largest one we've ever seen. It had over 1 million paid subscribers. Now, the reason I'm taking your time to share this with you is these guys were a subscription member. They had to requalify every week. That meant that somewhere in the world, a pedophile went out and violated a child and filmed it and sent it in to the site administrator to make sure that it wasn't Photoshop, so that they can continue to be part of it, because they know law enforcement cannot be involved in child pornography. And so that is how they use that. I believe this is accelerating child pornography like crazy, because once you're part of a group of 1 million people, you have camaraderie, you have inclusion, you feel acceptance, even a bit competitive. And on top of it, to stay in it, even though you might not violate a child every week, you have to in order to be able to stay part of the ring. But I want you to see what I'm talking about with money laundering here. 1 million people are paying between 160 and $350 million every 6 months to be part of that. So that means that somewhere in the world, some cartel is collecting $400 million in money laundering, and they have never delivered a gun or a drug. This is Yes Up Media out of Canada. Every one of these servers had child abuse and child pornography on them. So what is happening is law enforcement's catching up to these dark web addresses. They're finding ways to penetrate and arrest them. And so, like the thing that you saw out of South Korea with 1 million followers, you may see many of the arrests right here in California. These are global rings with 1 million people from all over the world. So the owners are starting to move out of the dark web, because law enforcement is starting to get technology, especially Homeland Security. By the way, internet crimes against children, my heroes. If you get a chance to support them, they're out of Long Beach and San Bernardino. And I would just be sick if they got defunded. They're amazing, amazing people who do the worst of the worst, going after the worst of the worst. Do the best of the best, going after the worst of the worst. But now what is happening is that they're moving into what is called bulletproof hosting. That is in offshore accounts like Romania and Belize and Albania, places where countries that don't care what you're posting, and they do multiple levels of encryption so that law enforcement can't pass it. So here I am at the end of the day, only I have hair, so I got lucky. Anyway, if you do nothing else to fight this, if you have any teenagers in your life, any young kids in your life, the 4 most powerful words to combat human trafficking are "I believe in you." And there's a long story behind it I won't go into. But I'm going to tell you, think about what a pimp is selling a girl. "I believe in you, baby. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there for you." To answer your question, Internet Crimes Against Children, ICAC, ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children. But this is, if you do nothing else in your life, take every opportunity, not only with your spouse, with your husband. By the way, I learned that from my husband before he passed away. I came home, I'll just share it with you. I came home one day after working, and he had made this sign: "To the smartest, most beautiful, hardest working woman in the world, love, Del." And I cherish that. And it keeps me going. And I realized that that's what every kid, especially foster kids, they don't have that anchor relationship of somebody who's going to believe in them when everything else goes south. And that is why so many foster kids are in sex trafficking. What can we do? Educate parents and grandparents about where naked photos go when you hit send, and why those guys want your photo in the first place. I can't even imagine that we're putting all these kids online without explaining to them the world they're living in. It's kind of like, I know I get salty here, but it's kind of like putting your kid on the 10 freeway and then you don't tell them the cars are coming down it, you know? Then when they get hit by a car, you blame Caltrans. And so it just doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, if you have a prepubescent child online, we really have to address that, because that's the trend our world is going for. And provide counseling for parents. On the deals with the massage parlor, Huntington Beach has a great model on this, by the way. Chief Handy is a friend of mine over there. Work with your city council to pass an ordinance that says if a business is closed down for illicit sexual activity, that the landlord cannot re-rent that business to a similar business for 3 years. And it will make landlords be a lot more choosy. And on top of it, it'll stop whack-a-mole, because they already have pre-signed agreements. The owners of those massage parlors have a pre-signed agreement that if they get picked up, it's automatically sold. And that's how it works. And then the law enforcement has to start their investigation all over again. Develop ethnic experts to address the fears issues and language issues when working with foreign national victims. I see some people on here of Asian descent. I can't really tell which ones, but you're so valuable in your community because you understand your culture, you understand your languages, you understand how to talk to people. Same way if you're Hispanic, they're going to take one look at me and say you're a blonde gringo. And I don't trust you, but they will trust you. And that's where we need that. Train your kids about dating and hookup sites. That is so important. Help your foster youth that are transitioning out of social services and help them establish a healthy residency. Develop specialized counseling programs for parents and youth who have been victims of social media exploitation. I think that's so important. We're going to be releasing our new documentary, and we're looking for people to come alongside with us and help us with that. Support your local district attorney and your sheriff. Let them know you're there with them, and is there some way you can make your community stronger and that you can be there so that they're not fighting that fight alone. Educate yourself just simply by, signing up for insider alerts or some of our Facebook, or maybe ordering my books. That'd be a nice thing. If you want to donate, that's up to you at mayandkids.org. This is the NCMEC National Hotline. They are amazing people. I've been fans of them for years and years and years. They take calls on sextortion, social media exploitation, child pornography, any kind of sexual abuse. You can do this anonymously. And finally, this is Insider Alert, and this is how you reach me. Well, I am way over my time. So do we have some questions here that I need to answer, or you can unmute and ask? Oh, Chief Handy retired? Oh, you're an officer? Oh, Bob Handy retired? Oh, geez. Oh, he'll be gone by the end of the year. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Chief Handy was just a delight. He was out here in San Bernardino, much to his dismay. But whoever said, Jeff Baker's saying that. So you're at Huntington Beach PD, Jeff? Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that he's got a good life anyway. A good source is Cyber Safety Cop. I agree with that. I have met them. They have a great training program, especially the devils in the details on this app program, and cyber safety is great. Let's see what we got. I can't test.
We also had the question, can't you change in your phone system or your phone settings to not have the pictures or videos with GPS?
You can, and that is kind of being modified. You know, all of these apps evolve from time to time and change. I continue to put that out there because we have a lot of kids that have photos that are already out there that had that on there. But yes, you can. And I highly recommend that you do that if you have children, because they don't get all that, you know.
Right.
You know.
Right.
To repeat. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Clay Cranford with Cyber Safety Cop, in some of his seminars, he will walk you through that process of helping your kids shut down their location.
He's fantastic. I would have him in for all of my parent, special classes and stuff. He's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Hi, I'm from Maryland. I work at a prison in Maryland. And I was just wondering, a lot of times some of the inmates will ask me to send them copies of their financial account. If I saw anything that looked suspicious as far as them money being sent somewhere, what's some advice about that? Who would I go to about that?
Well, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the laws of privacy even in prisons, and you would need to find that out. In my first inclination is it would be no different than listening in on a cell phone call, which, you know, on the jail calls and stuff, which is how we built a lot of cases, by the way. So I would think that could be a good resource. Now, before I did that, I checked the privacy laws to make sure you don't get yourself in trouble, because, you know, I'm from California. What you think is logical doesn't turn out that way legally out here. So, but, you know, it would seem like that would be a reasonable resource.
Yeah, I would definitely go to my supervisor first.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't even know what to look for. Like, it's easy for us to see who they're sending money out to and how they're getting money into the prison. But I just wouldn't even know what to look for. Like, if I see that they're sending money to an individual, obviously that would not raise a red flag, but I didn't know if there were any, you know, it's just I would certainly go to my supervisor, but because of some men have like thousands of dollars in their accounts at the prison. So you almost have to wonder, how are they getting that? Is, you know, some type of illegal, you know, but I pretty much do, especially those that are in there for human trafficking. So.
Yeah, I tell you, it doesn't stop just because they go to prison. I was thinking of the Telecom gang, Boo Holt, Holt. If you want to Google that, he was, you know, making threats. He was placing ads. He's, you know, recruiting male pimps to control his female girls that are out there. He was operating completely, and he was pretty violent while he was in prison. And they finally got him, and hopefully they got that straightened out. But, you know, several of those gangs are operating from prison. So, I mean, I think for me, thinking like law enforcement, which I'm not, I'm a civilian, but you know, everything's fair game. Are they buying a bunch of gift cards? Are they getting in large sums of money? Are they placing ads somehow that's looking like a charge or something like that? Are they, do they have somebody that if they're a known sex trafficker, you know, who are they talking to out there? I would probably, what I would do is, rather than make that decision myself, I'd probably find out from your supervisor, is somebody monitoring their jail calls, and can they combine that information with the jail call? Because that's really where you're going to build the case.
Okay, thank you so much.
What is the
Yep.
earliest?
Yeah, we have a, yeah, oh yeah, you're seeing it, Opal. What is the earliest age you think a child should learn about this? Or do you think a child with a phone should?
Well, I probably am an old codger on this, but my number one thing is, have you had this sex talk with your child? And so many parents will go, well, I don't want to traumatize them. They're a little young yet. I say, if you're too young for a sex talk, you are too young for a phone, because you are going to get an education. I sometimes kid, if you're going to put an 8-year-old kid on the phone, take them down the strip club first and see how they hold up for 15 minutes, because that's who they're going to meet. And the real challenge we have here is our society's moving kids into technology, but nobody is really acknowledging that there's another half of this equation, and it is an open door for pedophiles everywhere. And how do we teach an 8-year-old what sodomy is, you know, or you know, having sex with babies? I mean, you saw a couple of the cases. I mean, I get these cases almost every day. I'm not exaggerating this. Some of the cases I've sat through just make me want to vomit. And the family, I mean, you know, and they carry all kinds of flavors where, you know, one of the things that's happening that's scary is all these video games with PS5 and Discord and like that. They all have live streaming. That means that they can see right into your living room. I can give you several cases where the 15-year-old boy has been lured in thinking it's a hot girl and he wants to advertise, and pretty soon he's being blackmailed. And the next step is, I saw your little 12-year-old sister and you are going to have sex with her, and film that or I will destroy you. And I had a family walk in as it was starting to happen. This is what I mean by you're making pedophiles of our children, and it's involving other family members. One of the videos I often show is, you know, a 12-year-old boy. He did this regularly with a guy where they're having sex together on the video screen, and the other children are in the room. And this is the part that is scary. The fact that we are taking our children's innocence long before they ever get an identity, a sexual identity, or even a personal identity, or a self-worth identity. And we are putting them out there where other people can just literally deliver the vial of the vial. And so that's the challenge. I mean, I may be talking too long, but let me just share one story with you. It's a story that I carried. He's 9. He's smart as a whip. He's straight A student. He's more mature than most kids. So mom and dad get him one of these phones, and it has a tracker and it has all this stuff. But it was app specific. And this 9-year-old boy, as soon as mom and dad leaves, he's already heard about Kik, which is an old app now. Anyway, he knows immediately how to go out, find Kik, upload it, install it. He goes right out and meets a pedophile. And this pedophile and him are playing a game, and he just wants to show the guy how cool he is with his new phone. And the guy starts wanting pictures of his private parts, and he thinks it's funny. So he takes a picture and sends it off. And nobody knows about this until that night. And what happens is that night, this is older when GPS was still more prevalent, but that night, this man's sitting out in the side yard watching their son play in the backyard. And so the family called the police. And when they got out there, he had the photo of the kid right on his phone. Photos have GPS on them. He had tracked to this kid. Now, this kid was smart enough to figure out how to install an app that isn't being picked up on the tracker yet, and take a photo, upload it, download it. He's smart as a whip, but he doesn't know why an adult male wants a picture of his private parts, because, you know, his mind doesn't understand adult sex yet. So that's the challenge we're facing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm probably I'm probably a little more adamant about it because I sit with parents on a regular basis, and this is life-changing.
Yeah.
Opal, take as much time as you need. None of us are in a hurry, so feel free.
Till I'm sitting here in this room all by myself.
We'll be here. We're gonna stay. We're never alone.
I want to say, Opal, thank you for the passion that you have in terms of caring for individuals. And, you know, the kids are our future, right? They're the next generation. So it is really unfortunate how technology is sort of advanced. Well, it has advanced the commerce of it all, you know, that the humanity has become the commodity again. I mean, you know, it's been since the beginning of time, but just thank you for that passion. Appreciate it.
Yeah. It's I need all of you guys to fight the fight. I mean, I study this, and some days I think my mind is just trash. What am I doing? You know, but I mean, this is a very real thing. But when I start to look at the load of it all, I get excited about the power of it all. When you realize that you can raise up a generation of kids who see technology as a way to be a cyber missionary, to use technology for the glory of God, to create music that will help, you know, foster kids find hope and be able to reach foster kids that you normally would never meet. I mean, there is a good side and a bad side. Now, I wade through the mud every day, so you got that part of it today. But when I see the power of what you guys can do there at Saddleback, the people that you can reach and the kids that you can raise to be leaders. You see, I believe how we raise this generation of young people. I mean, first of all, let me say thank you for being on here. This is the greatest mission of all time. Where you're at today is, I think, the most important mission, because how we teach this generation of young people to use technology that glorifies God and honors themselves and others will set the stage for generations to come. And I think we can't afford to look the other way. I think that it needs to be a strategy that a church takes on that says we are going to raise up a generation of leaders that will spread throughout the world to be cyber missionaries to impact, use that same technology for good. And my experience with kids is they don't want to be violated. They want to be leaders, but they're looking to us to equip them. And most parents have this like veil of denial. They're terrified of all this stuff going on. And they just go, you be careful. And that's as good as it gets. And I think we're missing the boat. I think to create a vision in kids about the power of social media for good and for bad, and how you can use it to be powerful global leaders. I mean, you can use it for training your missionaries. You know, most missionaries are not tech savvy, but they're sitting there with an entire population of people who are so vulnerable to being recruited just like that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a comment on here from Jennifer. It says, Opal, I work with a lot of college students at UCI, mostly girls. All of them have shared with me that social media seriously damaged them growing up. Your work is so important. I will share your work with my students and will find a way to support your organization. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I usually speak at UCI. I haven't because, well, I have since COVID, but Valerie Wright is the instructor at UCI that I work with there.
Oh.
I don't tell USC that I go down there, though. I have 3 jobs at USC, but I go off to other universities when I get a chance. Well, I want to thank all of you for taking the time. I went way over my time, and this is a lot of heavy stuff. So please, tonight, self-care, you know, go for a walk your dog, give your husband or wife a big hug, tell your kids you're proud of them, you know, take a deep breath, eat some ice cream, do something, but let it roll over you, and it will begin to come back in pieces. But be sure and self-care tonight.
Opal, thank you so much. I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate you. I get your emails with your insider alerts and watch your videos and your accessibility to people. I mean, I called you on that one team that we had, you know, information from the mom about, and you're just so, we can't figure out, it feels like you must have a lot of clones that are taking care of all the stuff you're doing. So it seems like you're constantly like on the radio, or you're on your insider alert, or you're responding to calls from people like us and parents, and, you know, working with the police. So we just thank you for your dedication to this. It's just,
I'll tell you what, it keeps you humble because you're always behind. I'm always, my first word is always, I'm sorry.
no, you're awesome. You are awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you, Jeff, for being part of Huntington Beach. I love those folks down there. I have to find out where Bob Handy went.
He retired.
Yeah, but where?
I think he's looking at going back to Arizona.
Yeah, I kind of thought he would. I'm speaking at Supreme Court is hired me for Kingman in 2 weeks, and then again in October. So maybe I'll encounter him back there. So great. Okay, you take care, everybody. Good night.
All right.
Thank you, Opal. Thank you,
Thank
Opal.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.